Good morning, boys and girls. We have another special taping at How to Web. With me today is Gergana from 11 Ventures. It's such a good feeling to have you around. We haven't met before, so this is the first time we're actually having a conversation. I've met with the guys from 11, and they're a brilliant investment team. It's so good to have you here. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Now, Gergana, I know that you don't have a lot of time because you have a plane to catch. You should get next time. Make sure you spend more time with us because we can definitely have some fun. But now that you're with us here, I'm curious how you felt in the last couple of days seeing the startups in Romania. Coming from our neighboring country.
Yeah.
What did you think of us?
So first of all, a bit of background. So I started 11 2.5 years ago. Actually in March 2020, right together with the pandemic.
Yeah.
So all my relationship building went during COVID time.
So it was exclusively online.
Exclusively online, and I managed to do some sort of relationships here in Romania because Romania is one of our key markets. Mm-hmm. But they were all online, and I came here. I was very excited before the conference because I knew that I'm gonna meet all the people that I have been spending so much time on Zoom calls already. But it was even better because, I know, Bulgarians, Romanians, I think we're extremely close in terms of temperament and character. So everyone's very
Culture,
warm. And,
everything, yeah.
Yeah, I came here, I already had so many friends here.
So
now that I already also saw in person. So yeah, this is one thing that was very exciting for me. Then in terms of the startups, personally, I'm part of the health tech team. And I spend a lot of time with health companies. Mm-hmm. I also met with many of the companies that are based here in Romania. So again, a great opportunity for me to meet them in person.
Right.
And I think you have very cool ecosystem growing around a couple of industries. So I follow fintech, I follow health tech.
That's really
definitely.
Cool. There's something really interesting that's different that's happening with this edition of How to Web that hasn't happened before. So one thing that struck me as odd and made me go wide-eyed looking at this is everybody in the ecosystem. I'm not talking just about Romanians, but everybody, all of our friends in the community, in the whole ecosystem, everybody rallied together for How to, because we needed an event to get us together again after this much time spent, apart. And it's honestly, God, it's a breath of fresh air to have everybody here, under sort of one roof. We're outside now, but it's definitely a breath of fresh air. Now, you just told me that you have you're part of the health tech team and you have a passion for life prolonging technologies. Do you think that there's anything interesting rolling around the next couple of years that's going to make an impact, a significant impact into prolonging human life? Mm-hmm. And where is that coming from? What's it looking like?
Yeah, so definitely something that I observed in the last couple of years, and probably my natural interest towards it, it stems from this fact is that scientists, like global scientists, started to go outside of the scientific community and start to communicate their knowledge with the outside public. So those are already public figures. And a couple of years ago, all the research
Are you talking about people like Dr. Oz, and so that type of persona, or?
Exactly. I follow, for example, Andrew Huberman, like Peter Attia, David Sinclair, Matthew Walker. Those are all scientists that are. Each one of them have a specific area, and up until, let's say, 5-10 years ago, those people were just scientists doing their things in their labs, and no one knew about them. And now people like them are making this public knowledge. So people like me without scientific knowledge can actually understand them and can start taking action for that.
I think science communicators are absolutely vital to the betterment of the entire human race. And in my opinion, it started with the biologists who started doing documentaries on wolf behavior, on dolphins, or what have you. Then we moved on to physics, and we have the likes of, and these new wave of physicists who are doing online programs and shows and documentaries and properly communicating really complex ideas stemming from the world of physics, whether it's quantum, whether it's the multiverse, right? So having science communicators stemming from the medical field, addressing whether it's diseases like COVID viruses, or cancer, and helping us understand how to deal with this sort of stuff in a better way. But I haven't seen anybody properly communicating, except for a couple of guys like David Sinclair, on the matter of life, prolonging human life.
There are more and more people speaking about that, and they speak about this in a very reachable way for the general community. So
Right.
they tell you how important is sleep. Like everyone has heard that sleep is important, but then when your mother tells you you have to sleep, you're like, yeah, sure. You have to eat healthy, yeah, sure.
You touched the painful point for me because I suffer from extreme insomnia. So
Yeah. And
does
then
that mean I'm gonna die young now?
No, but I don't know. I can recommend a couple of podcasts after this show.
Right.
So, and then those people, they make it easier for people like us, people without scientific background, to understand what small steps we can make to improve our everyday life. And it doesn't matter to just completely change your lifestyle, but at least to understand like what effect does it have on your sleep when you have an afternoon coffee, or when you're chatting up until late in the night, many other things. Or like what effect does a glass of wine has in the evening. We don't speak about those things, like especially here in our region, having your glass of wine in the evening,
No, we have it with every meal, and it's not a glass of wine, it's usually trick or vodka or
exactly. And if
some
you
stronger
don't,
stuff.
something's wrong with
Right,
you, right?
right.
Everyone's asking you, are you sick?
Right, because culturally, Bulgaria and Romania were pretty much the same. So if you
know.
go out with friends and you say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not drinking," and they're like,
Everyone's like,
"Are you sick? What's
"Are you
wrong with you?"
Yeah, so those guys that I'm following, and they bring awareness to this topic. They don't tell you don't drink or don't smoke or don't whatever. They tell you when you drink, this and this and this happens to your body. And I think that we
then you
have
make a
this
choice, an
knowledge.
informed choice, yeah.
Exactly. So
But
we
from a
need to have this
technological
knowledge.
point of view, what's it looking like? I mean, what are we doing to further advance what's feasible in creating a pill that is going to make me live 5 years longer unless a car hits me along the way, or if I get some nasty disease,
Yeah.
or an implant, or organ replacement therapy, where they really change your organs,
Yeah. I don't really want to go into the pill topic because
Yeah.
it's a lot of pharma there, and I wouldn't change behavior with pill. I think pill is way too easy.
Right.
I think we need to do some behavioral changes before going to a pill, even though of course pharma companies would love for them
sure.
to have a pill for everything. But for me, behavior is more important, and a couple of things that are growing in importance, and companies like Apple and Google are spending so much money on it, is having data about yourself, like tracking everything that you do, everything your body is, your temperature, your sleep.
Smartwatches anyways, yeah.
Exactly, everyone now has a sports watch. And this data is invaluable because it's your data. Another thing that I think is super important, and now it's already very affordable, so you can do it in less than $1,000. 10 years ago, it costed hundreds of thousands of dollars to do, is like DNA testing, genome testing. When you do this test, they don't tell you, like, they don't give you a formula, but they tell you you're predisposed to certain things and you can do certain changes, so you minimize certain risks.
Right. You balance out the
balance
good, the bad DNA with your lifestyle.
Exactly.
And so you have multiple options on how you carry
There are many,
yourself.
yeah. And then different continuous blood sugar monitors, any sort of generally data gatherers,
Right.
that and that give you some sort of predictive analytics, or at least the data, so you can again take an informed decision.
That's really interesting. There's another aspect of being an investor in a VC fund I'd like to approach with you, and it's kind of difficult because today it's a sensible subject, especially if you look at the PC culture that goes on. We haven't had it until a couple of years ago. I'm talking about the PC culture, but it's coming in waves and droves, and sometimes it feels like an overcorrection, like the pendulum swung far too much in the other direction. Needs to come back a little bit, right? So even in Romania and Bulgaria and Western Europe, countries that have been systematically sort of patriarchal in nature, because they have been, and there's no denying it, right? We've had Me Too movements here as well, and for good purpose. So everything with this that's happening in the world of startups, the way I see this manifesting is there's more and more female founders, being brought up to light, and they're making waves, and they're doing a really good job. But at the same time, I'm also seeing the other side of the coin. When the pendulum sort of swings a little bit too far. So, for example, I've seen a couple of examples of all female VC funds or all female founders, and this was their origination announcement. This was their positioning. It wasn't about what the startup was doing or the investment thesis of the VC fund or how they would be different. It was simply because they were all female, right?
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the two examples that I have in mind, both of them failed quite fast, so they didn't even get to launch or execute on their whatever vision that they have, right? And not even communicating the vision wasn't something that was done outright, because it was outshined by the fact that we're a team of eight women, and it's an all women-led either VC or startup. You acting as a female investor in a VC fund in Western Europe, which is a boys' club traditionally. How are you looking at this?
Yeah, that's a very favorite topic of mine, I must say.
Is it?
Yeah, I have a quite polar view as opposed to many ladies in the field probably. But for me, so the example that you gave with the startups that failed and were all female-led, I don't think they failed because they were female-led, but if they succeeded, it wouldn't have been because they were female-led. Like what gender they are, what sexuality they are, what color of their skin they are, doesn't play any sort of a role in the success. That said, like diversity is important because me and you and many other people, we have different views. So of course, having the diversity, that's invaluable, and we have to embrace it. And I totally support any sort of initiatives that help more girls, for example, join the entrepreneurial sector.
Sure.
Know of startups, have the comfort to build a startup, but I think that the way how it is approached right now with imposing quotas or saying I'm going to be female only, I'm going to only invest in female founders, or saying all right, you as a VC need to have this much percent of like startups. How can we have 50% female-led startups when at the funnel we only saw 5% of them? Like,
right.
So we need to fix the entrance point, and we need to analyze it in much more depth. Because my personal opinion is that this starts from education.
Early childhood. I have the same impression myself as well. Because look, I grew up with a sister, right? Mm-hmm. So we both grew up together, right? And our interests were different growing up, right? She was more human-centered. She had the focus. She was interested in people. She wanted to become a doctor, right? Which is a noble profession. She ended up working with kids now as a young professional. Me, on the other hand, I was more interested in things, right? In how things work, breaking things apart, putting it back together, this sort of stuff. We've had different interests. I don't feel like even coming up through school and then the company I've worked for both women bosses, men bosses. There was never any proper difference. Maybe in temperament, but not anything that would substantially impact their success or failure in life. And it wasn't the gender that they were identifying with. It was more of what they were doing, how they were carrying themselves, that was a predictor of how successful or unsuccessful
Yeah.
they would be or their team would be, right? When it comes to this diversity, I like to say diversity for the sake of diversity doesn't work.
No,
right?
it's totally broken, I think.
Yeah, in our part of the world, in Western Europe, for example, when it comes to diversity, we have maybe 2 or 3 types of diversity because we historically haven't had people of color, except for Roma people in our countries, and we haven't treated Roma people properly, and now we're making some progress in that area. But for us, racism has a very localized flavor,
Yeah,
right?
true.
Sexism again has a very localized flavor because in our cultures, both Romania and Bulgaria, while the states are similar to patriarchies in nature, when it comes to the family, usually it was for me. My mom was the leader in many regards of the family. She was the leader of our education, what we've received as education. And when it comes to the family unit in Romania and Bulgaria, I think, I'm not sure, but I think we're quite similar in that.
We're quite similar.
It's the mother, it's the woman that is the leader of the family.
It's not only that. It's not only that. So in our part of the world, and like Soviet Union played a big role in that, because at the time women were put as equals to guys.
Yeah, they really were.
All women, they had jobs. They weren't stay-home moms, like most of them. In Western parts of the world, it was the opposite thing. So women traditionally were the home keepers,
right,
the family keepers, and only in the last, let's say, 50 or 100 years, they started getting like corporate jobs or playing a big role in an economic sense.
Right.
In our part of the world, it wasn't like that. So even now you can see, I will give examples from Bulgaria, but both MasterCard and Visa are led by women in Bulgaria.
Right.
Most of the banks, largest banks, are led by women in Bulgaria. Some of the largest IT companies, HP was brought to Bulgaria by a woman. I'm not only saying this as an exception, because it's not an exception.
It's like, probably the rule. It's the status quo.
It's not the rule. It's no one cares if you're a woman or if you're a guy. Like literally, no one cares.
I think what I have a problem with is it's not even the propaganda or the dogma of it, because I think that the intention behind it is a good one. Right, so aiming for diversity, aiming for equality is of course a noble aim to have, and a noble value to hold. However, what I think that we're doing right now, and I've seen that happening in Bulgaria, in Hungary, in Romania, in Moldova, in Poland, everywhere in this sort of sector of the world, is we're sort of importing this from the Western world, where exactly, there's a fundamental difference in how the families were built and led, and how the state looked at, whether you're a woman or a man, the equality of it all, right? And we're sort of importing the propaganda of it and the dogma of it without reconciling the differences, the fundamental differences between the two worlds and between the two cultures.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that just simply toting the line with this without recognizing the impact that women have had in our cultures, in our economies, as founders, as investors, as money makers and capital allocators in general, it's like denying their success in the past.
I must share, I get angry even by just like thinking that we are divided. Right. Why should I be looked as something else? And that's totally unnatural. Like, I don't want to be taken as we hire her because she will be our perfect diversity
the worst thing
fit,
ever.
Or it's I don't like it, and most women, they don't like it, I think. So it just doesn't need to play a role. You hire a person because of their merits, because of what they can bring to the company,
like for me,
and not because of natural things that they were born with.
I've often put myself in the position, because I've seen the affirmative action. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the affirmative action policies from US, where a certain quota of people joining the military or companies, they had to be either black or the Hispanic, or have that diversity element, right? This was the affirmative action, and it opened the doors for many young professionals that maybe those doors would have been closed. That being said, said, trying to put myself in that position. I'm working all of my life to get a job or attain a status or become successful in a business or become a teacher or be part of something, right? And to be accepted simply based on the merit of my skin color or my gender, would nullify the effort I've made my entire life. It would be, I don't know.
Yeah, I've been in this position, and that's why I get so angry about the topic. I did my studies in Bocconi in Milan. It's business school. I did finance there, so naturally we were about 80% guys, 20% girls.
Right.
And the natural notion was, oh, girls, your life is so easy because when you apply to the investment banks, they're gonna take you just because you're girls. Like, I'm studying 22 hours a day.
Right.
I'm doing the best I could, and
you're
then
nullifying my effort.
Exactly, and then you tell me you're gonna get in because you're a woman.
Is it worse? Look, I wasn't in that position. I only tried to picture myself in that position. But for you, because you've lived that, would it have been worse to be rejected because you were a woman or accepted because you were a woman? Because both of them are nullifying your efforts.
I cannot tell you which one would be worse. Like, both are bad. Any sort of qualifying me based on my gender is bad.
Right.
I'm a person with other qualities, and in a business perspective, I want to be taken in consideration because of this.
So here's an interesting question before the race starts.
Sorry, just to finish. And here I'm so angry because we, in Western countries, in UK, in the States, maybe Scandinavian, I don't know. Sometimes they do have issues in how they are used to taking the opinion of women into consideration. We don't have this here in our region. We just traditionally we haven't had.
Look, I think maybe sometimes we do. For example,
not to this extent.
Tech in Romania is very much a boys' club, right? And I see why, because I know that the interest of our kids growing up were rather different, right? Again, the example of myself and my sister, and I know that's singular, so it's a highly subjective point of view, right? But I think I'm not the biggest fan of blanket statements like, we don't have this problem here.
Yeah.
Maybe not to the extent of other people, but maybe
you know,
in some cases we sort of do. But what I'm trying to piece together is, for somebody in your position who's a capital allocator, right? So in many regards, it's your job to discover highly scalable startups that can make an impact, that make a difference, right? Observe the founders, because you judge the founders quite, radical. You have a scoring system on how you judge a deck or a company, right? In your opinion, what would be a better success indicator? No, what is, in your opinion, the best success indicator for a founding team?
Yeah, so for us, it's very important not to be a single founder. That's actually one of our.
That's why I said team.
That's why it's team. Over the years, we made investments in single founder companies. And if something happens with the founder, be it a mental breakdown, be it an issue in the company, be it the founder gets bored of what he's doing, whatever it is, then you don't have a plan B. When they're a team, they can support each other, and also when one of them has some idea, then the other can challenge. We always, also in our team at 11, we always have a partner and then the challenging partner. In everything we do, we don't have a single point that takes decision. We do it in a team, and we think that it's very important to have this in our founding teams as well. So ideally, depending on the industry that we invest in, we would have combination of skills. So for example, as I mentioned, I'm part of health. There we would be looking for someone with scientific background in combination with a tech guy or girl, in combination with someone that's good in commercials and can lead the company. So this combination for a health company would be perfect. And we would be looking for all those complementary skills, because if you only have, we see a lot of companies coming with 3 or 4 founders that are all just scientists, and they have a amazing scientific development going on there, but they have no idea how to go to market. This doesn't work. The other opposite doesn't work as well, when you only have techies or only have commercial people that haven't touched the product in their life.
I'm wondering, because inevitably, look, we're all human and we're prone to making quick, snappy decisions. And oftentimes, when you make quick, snappy decisions, which is almost every time, chemistry plays a big part of it, right? So, how much of the decisions being made at 11 account for the chemistry that the team at 11, the committee at 11 that's considering investing or not investing in a startup, has to do with the chemistry that they have with the startup?
A lot of it. Probably for later stage funds, this starts to play lesser and lesser role, but we are pre-seed and seed.
Yeah.
So at the stage...
You have to work with them, you have to spend time with them.
Exactly, and at the stage that we invest in, typically we invest in the team and the idea with a little bit of validation. So we bet on the team 90% of the times. We have to have a chemistry so we can work together as a team, because we are very active investor. We help our founders a lot if they want to be helped, and if they want to sort of accept different points of view and try to test different things. So chemistry is extremely important. We see this even in our due diligence process. We had a session a couple of weeks ago where we were doing learnings from different rounds that we closed or didn't close in the last year. And what we realized is that the founders where we had, you just meet them and you fall in love with them. Those founders, we closed the deal in less than a month, just because the partners saw them. They were like, oh we are doing that. And then everything else is a matter of signing some documents. The founders that we are not that convinced and we try to convince ourselves, sometimes they're a great team, but we don't have this falling in love moment. So we need more time to convince ourselves.
I know what you mean. What I'm curious is, the world we live in right now is sort of changing. So the geopolitical spectrum, the economy is kind of shaky right now. We know Fed hiking up interest rates, and we've been living in this ideal world for the last few years, where cash has never been cheaper. It was easy to put together, not easy, but easier than you would have expected to put together an investment vehicle, get some limited partners to put capital in, and then start doing allocations. But what I'm seeing right now is a mindset shift when it comes to raising money as a fund, right? So this is not your first fund at 11. You have this experience, and I'm sure that you guys have already noticed a shift in the priorities from your limited partners, right? Whether or not cash is cheap to get today, I'm not sure, but what I do know is that there's a different pressure being put on funds. They want the returns, so the LPs, they want the returns, but they want a different kind of return. So not necessarily higher or lower, but they ask, I want you to invest in stuff that matters, so I want you to invest in stuff that's impactful, right? The game is changing, the world is shifting as a whole. How is this feeling for you, or how are you decrypting this?
Sure. So you're totally right about that. The way especially institutional LPs are giving money is changing, and they expect much more from their companies. ESG here plays a huge role. I'm actually responsible for the ESG policies at 11, so I'm trying to follow the topic. Although it's not that developed in our region, but like Western countries, it's mandatory. Many funds already have ESG officer, like chief of impact, chief of I don't know what. I have a twofold view on that. So on one hand side, I'm happy that the institutional investors put this pressure on funds, because it's a great way to change how the world is working by actually changing the way private companies are working.
Right.
If a private company knows that they need to be sustainable or have some sort of an impact, then this increases the pool.
It's still profit driven, but at the same time, it's how you make the profit that matters.
What I don't like is that currently most of the measures that are being taken are similar to the diversity thing that we were discussing. There's so much on paper. There's so much like, we have to do this because we have to do this.
I don't like this.
No one is taking it seriously, really. Many funds are using it more as an advertisement, as opposed to actually having an impact. And we're in a set position, I think, because we take something that's well meant.
Right.
And again, we turn it into a monster that's gonna turn everyone against impact policies.
Here's where I stand on this. So I first got this impression after talking to some actual limited partners who have invested in multiple funds, right? And the way they were looking at it is, look, we know that it's sort of we're sort of changing the way in which you can do deal flow, right? We're changing the way in which you can select your investments, and that's significant. But at the same time, and we know that it's kind of hard when you look at an economy like Romania or Bulgaria or even Hungary, right, to say we want to invest more into green companies. Sure, that's a nice want, but the ecosystem isn't developed to a level where that would be highly feasible and profitable for me to return your money as a limited partner, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, their argument is it's less about the profit, although at the quarterly meeting they always ask about the progress. But the way they're looking at this is it's less about the profit and more speeding up the rate at which the ecosystem is reaching a space where it's profitable to highly invest into either diversity or eco-friendliness or green companies or this sort of place, right? So it's it feels a bit like trickle-down economics, in all honesty,
It is, but do you know how it is done right now? So the limited partners, the big institutional investors, they come and tell you, okay, so ESG is very important for us. You need to do your reporting.
Yeah.
How does the reporting looks like? You need to make all of your portfolio companies report on things like carbon footprint, electricity consumption, water consumption, etc. Have some sort of policies of how they're going to reduce those things internally.
On paper.
That's amazing, and this will have a lot of impact if you do it for a petrol company. But we invest in startups with 2-3 founders that work out of their flats.
Yeah.
Having them spend 2 days a month just on reporting, so that they prove that they only drink water from
their light bulbs are LEDs. Yeah, I know what you mean.
That's ridiculous, I think. It's not how it is supposed to be done. Otherwise, on what you were saying about putting money in different things, I would rather support this, because when you have, for example, a European program and they say, okay, this year we allocate this much money for green projects, of course, you stimulate and motivate people to create more green projects, and then in a couple of years there is going to be an ecosystem already, so this will grow. So putting money where you want the economy to go or the trends to go, I support it. But just out of nowhere, imposing some really, really tough requirements on companies that, I mean, do we drink our water from a plastic bottle when we are two people team and we need to prove that? No.
I know what you mean. But here's the thing. So traditionally what the European Investment Fund has done has sort of worked, right? So I'm not sure where Romania would have been without their support, right? The funds that have been birthed here in Romania have been done through the support of the EIF. That's one aspect of it. The funds being raised right now, what we're seeing is many more contributors from the private space, right? That weren't here 5 years ago, right, or 10 years ago, right? So it brought legitimacy to, in some regards, to this type of venture capital investments in the region, and it's working, right? So it's a snowball effect, slowly but surely, and I think that's the bit that they're making right now with ESG, right, and with going green and all of this stuff.
I hope so. I'm optimistic,
right.
So I'm
but pragmatic as well.
For ESG. I believe in ESG. I really want everyone to think more about the planet and more about sustainability, and I think that everyone as individual can change a lot of things. I just don't want it to become something on paper and something that people disregard because it's this annoying administrative thing that we need to do, because it will have the opposite effect. So this is what I'm
with you on this one. I'm definitely with you on this one. Going green for the sake of going green doesn't work as well, right?
Yeah.
You can't have it just on paper. You have to walk the walk. You know, I'm with you. I'm curious, because is this your first time to Romania, or have you been here before?
I have been many times,
Yeah?
but the first time since I joined 11.
Right. I'm curious what your impression is of how the ecosystem, the landscape, so to say, is sort of shifting. Because it's happening, for me today, it's a completely different world than it was 2 or 3 years ago, right?
Yeah.
COVID aside, I'm just talking about the mentality of it, where we are with capital allocation, where we are with the type of businesses that people are willing to try. Just to give you an example, a former student of mine is George. He's the founder of Flip.ro. That's a hugely successful second-hand phone marketplace in Romania. They're at 200 or 250 million, something like that at valuation. A business that started during COVID, on the like right before COVID, and grew massively during COVID, right? A business like that would not have been possible a year earlier than they started.
Yeah.
It just wouldn't have been possible.
Yeah.
They wouldn't have raised the capital. They wouldn't have had, sorry for the term, but the balls to do the marketing that they've done, right? It just wouldn't have been possible.
Yeah.
And today it is, right?
Okay, I'll answer this, and then I think I have to run.
You have to run for the
catch
plane.
my flight. Otherwise, I think I can stay here for 2 more hours and chat with you.
Oh, for sure.
So we definitely see this also in Romania. It's similar in Bulgaria, but in Romania especially, you got your first funds later than we did. I think the first funds were 2017, 18, something like that. And
you guys had 5 years on us.
Yeah, and it takes a while to have the ball start spinning, you know, and have the first money produce the first successful companies, and then the people from those first successful companies to start. Exactly, it's such a spillover effect, and it takes some time to start realizing this. I cannot make a good comparison because I haven't been, quite frankly, in the startup ecosystem for such a long time, so I can make the comparison of before and now. Pre-pandemic, I was more active in fintech, so I was coming to Bucharest and I was observing how the fintech community is growing here, and it was very positive because I was already seeing that all the stakeholders involved are supporting it. So you have the banks that are active, and they're rather friends than enemies.
Revolut came knocking. They had to shift. They had to change. They had to support fintech startups because they didn't have the digital transformation capacity. Oh, I know, Gergana, it's such a pleasure talking to you. I really look forward to our next discussion whenever that might take place. I wish you have like a safe travel and an easy way home.
Thank you. It was amazing to talk to you. Really, it was a very enjoyable chat.
All right. Have a good one.
Very nice meeting you.